Mind calm, body at ease, breathing quiet, sentiment benevolent. Dharma friends, sitting still in vital silence, wanting nothing, we practice eco-Buddhism together. The sound of the temple bell booms for all to cease from conflict. May the way of Buddha usher in the dawn of non-violent global village forever. Here is the after sound of the bell. Thunder of silence, light after Dharma rain. Amoga Varochana Mahamudra Mani Padme Jvala Pravartaya
Please stand and join me in chanting of the three refuges. So we first take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha in Sino-Korean out of respect to our tradition, and then in English. So the Sino-Korean you most likely don't know, but just throw yourself in as best you can. And now repeat after me the English. I go for refuge to the Buddha.
I go for refuge to the Buddha.
And resolve with all beings.
And resolve with all beings.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment.
And realize the great way.
And realize the great way.
I go for refuge to the Dharma.
I go for refuge to the Dharma.
And resolve with all beings.
And resolve with all beings.
I will penetrate the teachings.
I will penetrate the teachings.
And uncover oceans of wisdom.
And uncover oceans of wisdom.
I go for refuge to the Sangha.
I go for refuge to the Sangha.
And resolve with all beings.
And resolve with all beings.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many.
And transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
And transform this world into Buddha lands unimpeded.
Please return now for a shorter period of meditation, about 5 minutes or so, followed by our special program this morning. Taking a moment to work with your posture as you prepare for this period of meditation. Please join me in some stretching as an end to our meditation practice. Warming the hands and then the face. Attending to the pressure points along our skull, the ridge of our skull. All the way back to the occipital bones and the neck. Tending to the ears, the earlobes. And then breathing in, we stretch the lower back. Taking the time to enjoy our breath along with these stretches. Reaching upwards to the sky. And then as we fold, we reach all the way out. Stretching now to the left. And then the right. And as we sit, we clasp our hands behind us. Breathe in and fold forward, the arms extended behind you. And then as we come back up, we do a spinal twist, first to the left, looking all the way over your left shoulder. And then to the right. And now placing our hands at our hips, some nice big circles with our upper body. Grasping your left ribs. Lean to the right. And then to the left. Then grasping your hands behind your head. Some sharp outward breaths. Twisting to the left, to the right. Reaching all the way up. And as we drop the arms, we'll do abdominal breathing. So, good morning, dear Dharma friends. Can everyone hear okay? Excellent. Well, I want to welcome you to a special service today. A few days ago, on March 3rd, our founder, Samu Sunam, whose picture is on our altar and whose portrait is in the entryway as we come in, our founder had a birthday on March 3rd, his 81st birthday. And he is currently living in Toronto, being cared for there by the priest, Sanha Sunam, and others, suffering from Parkinson's disease at this point. We want to spend today celebrating his birthday by doing some special readings and stories. This helps all of us to connect with our roots, our tradition, and sort of the rich practices that our founder brought to us from the mountain monasteries of Korea. So we're going to start with one of his poems, Song of Meditation. And I ask of those who know this to chant along with me. The rest of you, please just place your hands in hapchang, palm to palm, and enjoy the recitation. Song of Meditation. Sit still, rest. You're one with all beings insentient. Rocks, trees, mountains, rivers, clouds, sky. Breathe, concentrate. You're one with all beings sentient. Birds, animals, insects, worms, fish, humans. Arise from meditation with live Wadu and meditation light. Streets, workplace, markets, travels our Dharma realms. Wadu is your tool to gain the single eye of wisdom. Its life comes from sincere heart and unknowing mind. Non-self, boundless heart, and first mind, the three ingredients in unknowing mind. Unknowing mind is a splendid world of infantile brilliance. Be a little dumb, pure, and innocent to enter this world, so you may cry without bitterness, laugh like the morning sun. Like Dharma rain, Wadu embedded with unknowing mind soaks your daily activities. Tears flow from skyscrapers, wooden men rise to dance, and flowers bloom on highway signs. We Song of Shila reminds you, enlightenment is instantly present in the mind of the beginner. Birth, death, and nirvana are always in harmony. Seeking or attaining enlightenment is the defeat of meditation practice. If such thoughts occur, wake up from ignorance, frightened as if swallowing poison. Each time you sit, you are a new beginner. The presence of awakened heart in the first mind is vast and infinite. There is no birth, no death, and no nirvana. Repent to surrender yourself if you have obstacles. Bow and perform prostrations if you have doubts. Do constant practice fresh in this moment if you lose beginner's mind. Here is a song for your everyday Dharma life. Meditation is knowing yourself. Knowing yourself is setting yourself free from delusions. Setting yourself free from delusions is becoming one with what is. Becoming one with what is enjoying formless life every day. Enjoying formless life is seeing yourself everywhere in happiness and sorrow. Serve all beings as Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Protect water, soil, and clean air. Praise the way of Buddha. San Maum. Song of Meditation is one of the poems that we deeply appreciate. Sunam wrote this himself, Samu Sunam. There have been many Zen masters over the ages who have written Song of Meditation, but this is his unique offering to us. Every Wednesday evening we read it and we study it together. So I'd like now for us to hear a little bit about Samu Sunam's life. And for this, I'm going to ask Haju Sunam to speak. I'll just sit up here. So I can see everyone.
Snowdrops in bloom under the apple tree. A few gathered in a bouquet for Venerable Samu Sunam. It's his birthday. It's a celebration of life, of his life. Welcome in from the 10 directions. Good morning.
Good morning, Haju Sunam.
Having known Sunam since 1977, pretty intimately, I mean, a lot of those years living with him, I could talk for a few hours. There's been so many stories, so much to appreciate and so much to learn. Let me start with just a little history and a little reading. Sunam was born in South Korea in a little city called Jinju, southwest South Korea, in 1941. He had 2 sisters and 1 brother who were all older than him by several years. When he was 3, his father went missing. There were turbulent times in the Manchurian Peninsula, and Sunam says as an adult that they really never knew what happened to his father, except that he was some kind of an activist who went off to do what he felt he had to do and never returned. So that left Sunam's mother raising the 4 children and trying to cope as even the Korean War began. And Sunam said that she died of insanity when he was 12 years old. So he kind of got abandoned by his brothers and sisters who were older than him. And so he was on the streets for 3 years as a homeless person. Finally, he saw a building, was a temple, and it was a beautiful building. So he went and inquired if he could please come and live there. And they said, if you want to start being a novice person, you need to go to a public monastery. And some of them were named. So he made his way to Busan and a monastery, Bomosa, which was quite near. And thus began his novitiate training and his ordination and his living in a monastic life in South Korea until he was to be inducted into the military, as even the monks had to serve. And he really felt that he could not do that. And so he went AWOL, and he got a ride in the hold of a freighter from Korea to Japan. This is where he begins to make me think of refugees. He's kind of probably the closest refugee I know in a certain sense. So he went in the hold of this fish boat to Japan, and he went to stay in a monastery in Japan. It was a Rinzai monastery. And it was during the time of the Vietnam War. And while he was there, he went for some reason to the American Club. maybe had an idea that he wanted to come to the US or something. And he happened to meet some soldiers who were on R&R from the war. And he met with them many times, they were interested in Buddhism, and they took up a friendship. So one of them sponsored him to come to the USA. And so plane fare, documents, all of that. So then he came in 1967, first to San Francisco, and it was the hippie times. He writes about that in some of his writing. So he was quite amazed to come out of monastic setting into the 60s and hippie time. And he visited Tassajara, one of the first Zen monasteries in our country. And Suzuki Roshi, the master there, invited him to stay on because monks and teachers and all were needed, because a lot of hippies were turning up to find out about Buddhism. He had been given a ticket to go to New York City, and he felt obliged by virtue of his gratitude for the soldier who had arranged it all to go to New York. And so he went to New York, and he was there for, I think, about a couple of years, and worked for United Parcel Service, got a little apartment and had people come to sit with him, begged for donations, financial support at Washington Square, and was a sight to be seen among all the hippies of the time. Yeah. Then something, I can't tell you exactly what it was that started, that he felt he needed to go to Canada. And so some people that had been his students got him dressed up as a skier and gave him skis and clothes and a toque and everything. And they smuggled him over the border to Canada as a skier, going, I don't know what mountain near Montreal he was supposed to be going to. And he got into Montreal, and he had an insatiable thing about always wanting to do Buddhism, not take up secular life so much. So he started a little Zen center in Montreal. And he also organized to have a country retreat center outside of Montreal, in Knowlton, I think, somewhere near Knowlton. And of all things, he met a Canadian poet, a woman, quite famous Canadian poet, and married her, of all things. His teacher, when he left Korea, he went to it before he went in the hold of that fish boat, and he paid his respects, said goodbye, and asked for advice. And the teacher said, stay in the world for 10 years, then do a 3-year retreat, and then maybe you'll be ready to teach. So when I think of him marrying Marianne, I forget her last name. I think that's part of his 10 years in the world, And they even had 2 children together, and their marriage didn't work out. I think he would say because he was too much of a monk, and he really had a hard time with the whole family life. And so eventually they moved to Toronto, and she took her kids and went to live with her mother in the Ottawa area. And Sunam continued to work in Toronto with Korean people who were interested in Buddhism. Somehow they found him, he found them, and started a little group in the basement apartment at 278 Markham Street, near Kensington Market, if you know Toronto. And that's where I met him. But I could go on, as you could see, for a long time, because I like to share. While he was in Montreal, he was asked to give a talk. You kind of see this monk going around in shaven head and monk's clothing and straw sandals. So I guess he was spied, and the religion department at Carleton University outside of Ottawa asked him to come and give a talk. And one of the students who went to that talk wrote something at the beginning of our old handbook. It's called the Zen Lotus Society Handbook. Originally, we were not the Buddhist Society for Compassionate Wisdom. We were the Zen Lotus Society. That's what Sunam originally called us. Okay, so here, this guy's name was Richard Hayes, and eventually he got the name Mubal, which means kind of no Buddha. What is this no Buddha? Because mu is a word that sort of goes deeply into no. Okay, let me find a place. So this guy, well, you kind of see if I read it. Excuse me. It was in Quebec, cold, icy, frigid, Canada. It was in the winter of the 1970-71 academic year that I personally first saw Samu Sunam. I was in the midst of writing a thesis as part of the requirement for an honors BA at Carleton University in Ottawa. My topic was Nagarjuna Madhyamika philosophy. I had studied and which was also helping me find my way through a series of very painful experiences in my life. It was during this academic year that Buddhism stopped being merely one of the religions or philosophies I was exploring as a young scholar. Sorry, I'm having trouble seeing it. I got new glasses and I don't work so much. Okay, I was exploring as a young scholar and became the single approach to life that made complete sense to me and about which I had no reservations. During this critical period of my life, it happened that Samu Sunam was invited to lecture at Carleton University. It was a bitter, cold Canadian winter day with many centimeters of snow on the ground, and Sunam arrived wearing a padded Korean monk's overcoat and straw sandals. Immediately, I was reminded of the descriptions of monks that are found in Pali literature. Unmindful of the heat or cold, they traveled about in simple robes, never complaining of their own personal discomfort, their minds only on the Dharma. After Sunam's lecture in a large auditorium, about 30 professors and students filed into a smaller classroom, and asked questions such as, is Zen a form of monism? If so, how can you talk about pure and impure thoughts? Sunam smiled politely and said, monism is one of your categories, not one of mine. Question after question came from the professors, each one a little sillier and off the mark than the one before. I remember feeling embarrassed for all my colleagues and mentors in comparative religions, and also feeling ashamed of myself for lacking the courage to ask the one question to which I wanted to hear an answer. Waiting? Mm-hmm. Okay. How exactly does one do meditation? Fortunately, someone in the audience was less shy than I was, and she asked just that question. A slow smile crept onto Sunam's stern face, and the smile grew until it had completely altered his expression from that of an army general to that of an extremely kind-looking man. That, he said, is perhaps the one question I have been waiting to hear. He then talked for a few moments about the method of practicing meditation until the professors grew impatient and interrupted once again with their own kinds of questions. For the first time, I really understood why Zen masters have so often expressed a bemused disdain of the purely scholarly approach to the study of Buddhism. This encounter with Samosunam made a very deep impression on me, and for years I hoped we might eventually meet again. In 1983, a friend of mine saw a poster in the University of Toronto Library announcing Buddha's birthday celebrations at the Zen Buddhist temple. The poster said that the temple was under the direction of Samosunam. When I had seen Sunam in Ottawa, he was not. When I had seen Sunam in Ottawa, he was not called Samosunam, but was introduced as Sam Woo Kim. That's his street name, his given name. I was not sure whether Samu was just another way of writing Sam Woo, and I also had no idea what Sunam meant at that point, but I had a hunch this might be an opportunity to fulfill my 12-year-old wish to meet this impressive Zen master again. My friend and I went to the Buddha's birthday celebration and lived happily ever after. So I just wanted to kind of give you, and I have a little something at the end, so that we can unfold some of Sunam's, you'll see his character more, and his spunk more, and through his poems and some stories that people will tell. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Are you alive?
Yes.
So as we read Samosunam's poetry, we'll be passing the microphone around. So just a little more background. After Toronto, Sunam went on to build temples all over North America. So Ann Arbor was the next temple, and then Chicago.
No, Mexico next.
Oh, Mexico? Okay, Ann Arbor, Mexico, Chicago, and then back to New York City. And the most recent acquisition is a farm in upstate New York. So while he was living in New York City, his love for poetry really expressed itself. And if you go to our website, you will see many of his poems. And I find this remarkable because English was a second language. But he married a poet, and he clearly loved poetry. So I'm going to start with an excerpt of one poem about a homeless person. As Haji Sunam mentioned, he himself was homeless at one point in his life. And once when all of the students were visiting New York City for our summer meetings, he took us out onto the streets. And we ran into this character. He was kind of a wild-looking character and clearly homeless. And Sunam just greeted him like an old friend. And I wonder, he never introduced this person, but I'm wondering if it's the friend who is referred to in this poem. I have a friend who is homeless. I ran into him 3 years ago on the northeastern corner of Madison and 60th Street. Ever since, Ken has perched himself there. All his belongings in one shopping cart, sitting in a wooden chair or an office chair with wheels, it happens. He eats, reads, and sleeps under open sky. Half of Ken resembles Michael Jordan of the Chicago Bulls. The other half, Rodney King, who pleaded before the batons of the LAPD. Like Michael, he is tall and graceful. Like Rodney, he has the natural dignity of an underdog without bitterness. The name of this poem is Let's Get Along. There's more to it, so I encourage you to go to the website and read it. I'm handing now to you.
So one of the things that I noticed the most about Sunim was how carefully he watched people. And in fact, at the breakfast table this morning, we were talking, there was a reporter from the Detroit Free Press who came to a retreat he conducted here in Ann Arbor, where he said people are not used to being so closely watched. And I think for Zen teachers, we have to be willing to be watched carefully and understand how they teach us. So I have a little poem of Sunim's to read, and then I just wanted to tell a very short personal story. Summer Yongmeng Junction, which is our intensive retreat. I came to the retreat with no idea. Cold rub down in early morning was cool. 108 prostrations were not bad. The endless sittings were killing me. Ouch, ouch. Sunim tells me I could gain entry into the first gate of Zen if I go through 36 big ouches. But Wadu study beat me completely. Dumb, dumb, dumb. Sunim tells me it would be easy as touching my nose while washing my face if I become a dumb and stupid fart. I still have no idea, yet from time to time, tears formed in my eyes. So this is part of another tradition among Zen masters, is sometimes they actually write in the third person, that their writing is kind of about a person experiencing this when they themselves are writing it. And along the line of watching, I wanted to just tell a very brief story about the day of my ordination as a Dharma teacher. I was really scared and almost feeling numb. It's like one of those experiences, I think probably the closest would be any of you who have been in a marriage ceremony where you've been married. You feel kind of numb through the whole thing because you can't believe this is happening. You can't believe that it's happening to you. And so, but I was feeling so intensely watched. Haji Sunim said to me, follow Sunim. So I'm following Sunim around as he's getting out dishes and telling me to take them to the altar and feeling very surreal, but I did, obviously he's Sunim, so I'm doing everything he says. And then Sunim says to me, watch Sanha. Sanha's the priest from Toronto. He says, someday this will be you, Hayun. You need to watch Sanha carefully. So I feel like that sort of dance of watching is something that's very unique to Zen and something that I am incredibly appreciative to Haji Sunim, but also to Samu Sunim for bringing that tradition to us. Because if we don't have that tradition of watching and listening carefully, both from the teacher and from the student, how will we ever grow? So I'm deeply appreciative, and that's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
All right. So this poem was written by Sunim in January 2017, and it's called Sunyata. For 30 years, I followed emptiness. Now emptiness follows me. In the true emptiness without form, wonderful beings produce wonderful worlds. No Buddhas above, no sentient beings below. Counting little stars in the dark night of Milky Way, I blend with unborn infinity. What is sunyata and emptiness? Hair born on the wind of a ghost. Sunyata, sunyata, sunyata. So when I was thinking about a story to tell about Sunam, I don't actually know him very well, and I've only met him a couple of times. But I have spent a little bit of time around him a few years ago during one of those long summer meditation retreats that that poem was about that Hayun just read. This was a few years ago in New York City. And Sunam has a reputation for also being kind of fierce. And so even though in his late 70s, he was visibly aged and slowed down a little bit, I felt that he still had that kind of fearsome tiger energy about him. And so I was kind of nervous as a student going to participate in this retreat, and I didn't know what to expect. It was a heat wave in the couple of weeks that we were there in New York. So I remember looking at the temperature one night around 10:30, it was 85 degrees at 10:30 at night. And so you can imagine during the day, it was very hot and the air conditioning was broken at the temple. So we sat the entire retreat drenched in sweat. And a couple of days into the retreat, Sunam came around and gave us all instruction. And I remember that he finished his instruction about practicing with our samadhi, with our concentration. And he said, as he was leaving, enjoy your practice. And a couple of days into this really strenuous, hot experience, I remember thinking, enjoy my practice. I didn't know that was an option. And so I really appreciated him saying that. And it sort of changed, I think, the trajectory of the experience for me. And then later, as the retreat had ended, everyone was so ebullient for finishing, and we had finished strong. And so some of the students said, well, let's go to the grocery store and get some ice cream and watermelon, because Sunam loves ice cream and watermelon. And I think his favorite flavor is Ben & Jerry's Chunky Monkey. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. I remembered right. So we got some Chunky Monkey and we got a big watermelon, and we were like carrying it back to the temple. And this is in Manhattan. And we got up to his apartment on the 3rd floor of the temple building there. And I opened the refrigerator, and there was already 5 pints of Chunky Monkey and 3 watermelons in the refrigerator. But he didn't say anything. He just, kind of humbly accepted these gifts. And then the last detail that I remember from that trip is, I think Sunam had asked me to sew something on a mat, like the meditation mats that we make. And so I had completed that and I brought it to him. And I noticed that in his little apartment, which was quite small, there was a huge room through these glass doors. And I asked him, that looks like a library. What is that? And it's a room about this size, I would say, and it is essentially his library collection amassed over many years, because he is quite a scholar of Korean history and Korean Buddhism. And so you can imagine a room this big with sort of floor to ceiling metal shelves, just like you would see in an academic library, all filled with books. And so I told him I had studied library science and worked in a library, so he invited me to come in and look at the books, and most of them were in Korean. So I of course, I didn't know anything about what they said. But he bent down at one point to show me something on a book on the lower shelf, and he was a little unsteady on his feet. And as I was sitting very closely to him, I saw he has that beautiful, strong jawline. There was a little patch of hair where he had missed with his razor. And it just tenderized my heart towards him, even though I had been kind of afraid of him. And just that sort of humanity and imperfection at the same time of the great teachings and wisdom that he had offered. And so I will always remember that little patch of hair that his razor missed on his jaw.
Wancho.
Also, if you want to come up here a little bit so you can be in the camera. Oh, okay. Sit right here. Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Wancho. I have a poem that I was asked to read. So I'm going to need these. Here we go. And this is by Sadhu Sunam. I knew him, I first came to the temple in 1997, and he used to come around quite a bit, and I was a Dharma student for a little while, so during that time I got to know him. This was written by Venerable Sadhu Sunam on March 1st, 2012, and it's called Tree Zen, Meditation Standing Up. I love trees. When I see trees, I feel at ease in the world. Trees stay where they are planted and never falter. I adore trees. They are immortal in the open air. Stretching out their multi-arms skyward, they stand tall and graceful. Listening to the birds chanting and singing on treetops, I feel comfort and happiness. I believe trees. I trust the work of invisible roots and visible trunk, with earth link of the root and sky link of the trunk. Trees inform sentient beings of changing signs of each season. Viewing flowers in spring, I feel reassured of renewal and continuity of life, and know summer will be upon us soon. I meditate with my patron trees. Meditation with trees is to learn to stand as one of them. Standing as one of them is standing free from body-mind. Standing free from body-mind is being at home with wind and clouds. There was a clear, loud cry in the sky. It was Dharma talk from a crow. Trees remained in silence and solitude, unperturbed. My pilgrimage and Zen study with insentient beings have just begun. So I mentioned that once upon a time I was a Dharma student, and during that time, one of the things you do as a Dharma student is you learn certain chants and you learn to memorize certain chants. And I was living here at the Zen Temple in Ann Arbor, and I was in the process of learning the chant called the Great Compassion Dharani, which many of you have heard. And it came time for me to present it to Sunam that I had learned it. So I began to chant, and I was chanting along. I don't know if Haji remembers this, maybe. Anyway, I was chanting, and I thought I had it down. You know, I could do it in my own room by myself many times. And somehow I started to falter about a third of the way through. And Sunam, who again, from my experience, had a reputation of being a bit fierce and this kind of, just I guess fierce is the best word, an enigma, if you will, Dharma master. I started to get really nervous, and Sunam just started to chant along with me. He just kind of picked up where I was and started very gently and quietly, joined me in the chant, and then I picked it back up again, and I started to go on, and he stopped, and I went ahead and finished. And to me, that was just this really beautiful way of helping me teaching me, and he didn't say anything afterward, like, well, you have to keep working on that, you know. But it was just a really compassionate way of teaching. And he had many other ways of teaching. I had many stories when I was asked to bring a story. And I'm sure Haji was nervous about which story I'd bring, because he was quite the character. And I also lived for a time in the Chicago Temple when he was there as the teacher. So, but that's one of my favorite stories about Sunim, and just the great teacher that he really was in so many quiet and beautiful ways.
I think we have one final poem by someone.
I had a chance to meet Sunim as well. It was kind of interesting. I actually twice in the last 2 summers I went up to the Springland farm to spend a week, and he was very quiet. I mean, like he kept silent. Although at one point he came to my room and he was super friendly and very polite and charming. Asked me where I was from and just the usual chit chat type of stuff. And he seemed so welcoming. And I heard from Osek later that he was super happy I was doing all that work on the farm. So I'm going to read his poem, Lo and Behold, from December 2016. If you wish to see your Buddha within, find peace in hardship. If you want truth in the changeable world, be happy among the living. If you need a life companion, be worthy. Never too late for love and compassion. Look, a wild turkey family traveling through the snow.
Now I think Haji Sunim has a final story.
Yeah, quick and fast. On Valentine's Day one year, Sunim had been visiting our group in Lansing, which we had then. And the wife of the Dharma teacher in Lansing liked to make Valentine cards and get the cutout ones. And so Sunim got into it, and he brought me back a Valentine's card. And he gave it to me, with a big smile on his face. Be my Valentine forever. So I was really touched by that. I mean, who says that? Right? And then the final thing that he said to me, that when I went to the farm to see him, he came very quietly into my room. And he had a look on his face, kind of like the look in the picture on the altar. You can have a look at it. And I didn't hear him coming, because he's very slow with his Parkinson's disease and very careful, because he can fall so easily. And there he was, and I was sitting in front of my computer, and I immediately felt guilty to be sitting in front of my computer. I was doing tempo work, but anyway, I did feel guilty. And he looked at me and he said, "What are you doing?" Those are the last words he said to me. And I think about that a lot. I say it to myself in lots of situations. What am I doing? Yeah.
Okay, so let's all stand, and we're going to make 3 prostrations in honor of Sunim. So standing, facing the altar.
Let's go a little more slowly. Really marinate in appreciation, gratitude, respect.
So we want to sing a little song as we exit the room. I'm going to, unless there are critical announcements, we just encourage you to take a green sheet as you exit, which has all of the upcoming events. Is there anything critical?
No.
Okay.
Thought we covered today.
Okay, so Michael invites those who wish to attend Dharma Recovery in person in the room below us, right at noon. And you can also join online. Thank you. So
I have a letter from our Ukrainian American member who asks everyone to hold the Ukrainians, Russians, and the whole world in our hearts and minds right now, because what happens there affects us eventually. And it's important for us to do our best action, speech, and mind to help. So this song that we're going to sing just happens to accord with that spirit.
did you want to read the letter? Okay. So we're placing the letter on the altar as an offering. Thank you. So this is a little song that Sunam wrote, and we sing it every New Year's Eve. So we'll sing it in place for a bit, and then we will exit single file. So it goes like this. Peace to the world, happiness to you, love to the world, wisdom to you. Peace to the world, happiness to you, love to the world, wisdom to you. Peace to the world, happiness to you, love to the world, wisdom to you. Peace to the world, happiness to you, love to the world, wisdom to you. Peace to the world, happiness to you, love to the world, wisdom to you. Peace to the world, happiness to you, love to the world, wisdom to you. Peace to the world, happiness to you, love to the world, wisdom to you. Peace to the world, happiness to you, love to the world, wisdom to you. Peace to the world, happiness to you, love to the world, wisdom to you. Peace to the world, happiness to you, love to the world, wisdom to you. Peace to the world, happiness to you, love to the world, wisdom to you. Peace to the world, happiness to you, love to the world, wisdom to you. Peace to the world, happiness to you,
to